And I love that one of them says, "Come to the city where you can say whatever you want." New York City. I guess I guess it's technically the truth. Okay, so this is kind of a bizarre story where Eric Adams is trying to recruit the alphabet teachers from Florida to New York. Now, I don't like Eric Adams at all. I think he is neoliberal trash. Same stuff where he just does slogans, panderings, doesn't mean a word he says one thing and does another. And right now he's in the process of seizing property from homeless people, the little bit of property they have. You know, where he's going, he's sending people in to deconstruct the camps, seize the property, and then goes, well, they can just go to the shelters, and if anyone knows anything about homelessness, you don't go to the shelters because that's either where you're going to get sick or you're going to get robbed. And then goes, well, we'll give them a voucher for their stuff, which means the state just took your stuff. And so basically you're going to just migrate somewhere else. But yeah, he goes up and he virtue signals to the alphabet teachers in Florida, spending, New York City tax dollars on a billboard campaign in Florida, which if I was in New York, I'd be pissed about that. It just seems like a bizarre thing to do. If that is that a demographic you really need? New York hasn't really, there have been exoduses from the cities, but New York actually hasn't really had that big of a population change. Not that big. And so going back, it all stems from the parental rights in education bill. Now, Eric Adams is not an idiot. He is a shitlib, but he's not an idiot. I know, and we all know, he's read the bill. It is 7 pages. It takes 5 minutes to read. However, he does know the people who are going to support this never read it because they don't read anything, because shitlibs don't actually do any research into anything they're talking about. Now, I read the bill. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't think it went far enough. I don't think it'd be necessary if we actually had cultural enforcement of these rules, but the conservatives are lazy as shit, and they never do anything. So, social enforcement, until they get their act together, is not even a realistic goal, right? A lot of conservatives are very similar to neoliberals in that aspect, where they're willing to do anything to stop the problem as long as it doesn't involve practical action on their part. You know what I mean? Here, I'll show you the billboard, and I'll show you what he said, which is really weird.
This political showmanship of attempting to demonize a particular group or community is unacceptable. And we are going to loudly show our support and say to those who are living in Florida.
Now, just off that, let me ask you, where in the bill does it demonize anybody? Like I said, I know he knows this, but the people he's talking to don't, because a lot of them, and this is a problem on both sides, what they tend to do is just turn on their favorite commentator and believe anything they say. There is nothing in there that demonizes anybody. It is simply, and it doesn't even ban a lot of these alphabet talks. It only means you can't do it in a formal classroom instruction. You can do it outside of that context, and you don't even have to inform the parents. It says you have to inform the parents, but it says exceptions if the child's physical or mental health could be at risk from informing the parents. I can see how that could be very easily manipulated. I mean, it's coming from the people that see everything as violence. So, I'm not surprised if that gets completely, manipulated to their benefit. So this is why I said it doesn't even ban anything. It's just formal talks about, sexual identity and other sex stuff, which is, and let me get this out of the way. I'll go into this in a second. But it's really, when it comes to the people who are trying to groom the kids for sexual stuff, it's a minority actually doing that. The majority of people who are actually doing this are just neoliberals. And neoliberals just do whatever they think is trendy and will get them social acceptance and social status. But I'll go into what I mean by that in a second.
Listen, we want you here in New York. We want you right here in New York City. And it's more than just saying that. It's also standing up and aligning ourselves with the men and women of the LGBTQ plus community and stating that.
Now, we all know when the politician says that, they don't mean it. Well, maybe the alphabet, because when the alphabet complains about stuff, they get it. But how many times have we seen, politicians on both sides. They're always like, we stand with you, we're going to do this. And then as soon as they start, the government continues their overreach of power and it steps on you, you sit there, they just stop listening to you. And you guys go, hey, no. They just walk over you. So
that we are in unison with you and your right to have self-identification, your right to be live the lifestyle and live the lives that you choose to live without any form of harassment.
What does harassment have to do with the bill? Nothing. Again, he knows this. He's smart enough to know this. But yeah, we both know everything he says is pandering. I mean, it's like when New York City was talking about how much they love Black Lives Matter and painting it, and then as soon as BLM came out against mask mandates, they just sort of were like, I don't know who these people are. But here is the billboards that your tax dollars are going to fund in Florida, which is basically just sending tax money to Florida. I imagine if you live in Florida, I mean, you're all for it. I mean, you get the tax money, your state gets the tax money, and these alphabet teachers leave? Now, if you're in New York and you're not down with this, that sucks. And I love that one of them says, come to the city where you can say whatever you want. New York City. I guess it's technically the truth. Of course, the other one says that people say a lot of ridiculous things in New York. Don't say gay is not one of them. Now, the reason I will never refer to it as that is because that has nothing to do with the parental rights bill at all. I see many people on the right calling it that for some reason. I don't know why you're calling it that, because that's not what it is. That basically accepts the left's framing, which is weird. That you guys always do that. I never understood that. The right has a really bad habit of doing that, but then again, they're not very smart. Anyway, I wanted to go into now. You know, a lot of people are saying that these are groomers who want to, you know, sexualize your kids. I will say this. There are those. It is a minority, though. Because the problem is, and what do I say the majority of the problems in America stem from? Neoliberals, or shitlibs, whatever you want to call them. Because shitlibs don't really have any core beliefs. They switch to whatever they think is trendy and popular, and that they can brag about to their shitlibs friends for social status. So, Alphabet Kids is popular, so they're going to latch onto it. This is why I said far left is really not in any way the threat to America that the right thinks it is. The neoliberals just see a lot of far left things as like trendy, so they're just copying it. It's like, you know, 3-4 years ago when the trendy thing was be a socialist, and then like none of these people could define what it even was. I was going through a white neighborhood the other day, white Santa Monica neighborhood, upper middle class, and I look over to this dude's house, and he has a big sign that says, clear the skies, support Ukraine. And I was like, dude, just say support Ukraine, go to war. Just put the sign, at least you'll be honest then. But I would put money down that if I went up to that person and asked them what a no-fly zone is, they will have no clue what that means. Because that's how it operates. Because if you notice, in these videos of the people complaining about the parental rights bill, you notice they all tend to look very similar. They tend to be either young to middle-aged white women, and sometimes a very effeminate middle-class white men, or upper middle-class white men, which is usually the target demographic, you know, for shitlibs. They just see alphabet kids as trendy. And the problem is when shitlibs get a hold of something, they're always trying to one-up. They all have to one-up each other. So it creates this feedback loop of things getting more extreme and more extreme and more extreme. Because you already know there's going to be a family that goes, I have a trans 1-year-old. You know it'll get there. And it's going to be some white woman. But as soon as the next trendy thing comes along, this will blow over. It depends on how long this stays trendy. Because this shit wasn't trendy like 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't. So no, it was never brought up. It was never pushed, more and more and more extreme. That's what I'm saying. The problem is just neoliberals always trying to one-up each other. They don't believe any of this crap, dude. They just think whatever is trendy is trendy. Remember how awful wars were when Trump was in office? And this happened with Bush too? How awful wars were when Bush was in office? And now people, those same people who are so anti-war are now literally calling for a direct war with Russia. Same thing like how they were all opposed to Bush's wars and they're outraged, and then as soon as Obama got in, they just stopped talking about it and then just start backing all the wars he wanted to do. It's the same idea. So yeah, that's how it's working out now. Like I said, I would prefer social enforcement of these rules, but like I said, conservatives don't do anything. They're just lazy. So many complain about these schools and they keep sending their kids back to them and go, but my job. And I'm like, okay, so shut up. Who cares? I don't understand why you would be angry that this is happening to your kids and then keep sending them to the same school, which I've seen a lot of them do, and they just keep going, but my job. And I'm like, okay. So you're okay with it happening, you just don't like it. There's a big difference there, right? That's what I mean. If we had the social enforcement, the government getting involved wouldn't be necessary. What are you going to say? One side actually will try to do something if their thought leaders tell them to do, and the other side just sits around and waits for someone else to do it. So of course the side that sits around is going to lose every time.